Welcome to Michael Potts F1, every moment from every Grand Prix. Hi everyone, that was the Austrian Grand Prix, and we've got Natasha here again to talk about everything that happened over the weekend. Natasha, how are you doing? Where are you for a start?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. I am in extremely hot London right now for the week leading up to Silverstone. A lot of the home races are obviously in the UK, and a lot of the teams are doing big activations this week. So I am very fortunate to be able to cover some of them.
Yeah, which activation?
So Williams is doing a big event in Piccadilly. I think it's Tuesday to Thursday, so we'll be going there tomorrow. And then McLaren is doing their big McLaren Live event on Wednesday, Thursday in Trafalgar Square.
So, Austria, what did you think?
I thought it was a very exciting race, definitely unpredictable with so many DNFs. Red Bull, again, I mean, it wasn't Max's fault, the incident that happened with Kimi running into him. Maybe Max is cooling off a little bit because he didn't really get as upset as I thought he would with someone crashing into the side of him and him being a total passenger.
Yeah, it was an interesting way for Max to avoid picking up a penalty, getting knocked out on the third corner. So that's one way to avoid a race ban, I guess. But it was a bit of an interesting one because the Austrian Grand Prix is usually a full house. It is usually wall to wall orange Austrian and Dutch fans. But this year there was a lot of empty seats. Grandstand in front of the big bull statue, a third of it was barricaded off without anyone sitting on it. And yeah, it just felt like it didn't have the same atmosphere or the same fervor that the Austrian Grand Prix normally has. I mean, when you were there, it was just this amazing party. It wasn't like that this weekend at all. I think it was an important weekend for Red Bull and the championship. Max getting knocked out when he did pretty much rules him out of being able to win the drivers. They're fourth in the constructors. It looks like they're pretty much stuck in this position till the end of the year.
Yeah, and I don't know if these rumors are true, but the contract clause in Max's contract that by the summer break, if he isn't on path to win a driver's championship, he has an exit clause that he could potentially exercise. So
Maybe that explains why he was so chilled with Kimmy. That triggering of that clause does spark a whole bunch of very interesting questions, especially with what happened with Toto and George over the weekend, because George basically called Toto out saying he's talking to Max. Toto was trying to be a bit coy about that in the press conference, but there's a lot still going on there. I think we haven't heard the last of the story. If that break clause gets triggered, those conversations can start happening more fervently.
and where would George go?
Well, there'll obviously be a space at Red Bull. You know, Red Bull could suit him, probably be the natural fit because it's a top team. He would be team leader, and hopefully they'll have a different design strategy to this year.
If I was in George's shoes, I would be pretty frustrated because I feel like he came onto Mercedes to build it back up. And just when it feels like they're getting momentum and they could be on this path to winning another championship again, and if he gets moved somewhere else to build up another team, that could feel frustrating, I'm sure, for him. But we'll see.
Yeah, he's in this awful paradox that he has to perform well to prove that he deserves to be the team leader at Mercedes. The more he pushes that car and the better that car does, the more attractive it becomes to Max. So by doing well in the Mercedes, he could only be benefiting Max moving in and taking his job. So yeah, it could be awkward.
Definitely. One fun fact I learned about Toto in the press conference was I didn't know that he was a racing instructor living on a farm, coaching drivers at the Red Bull Ring before he said he was broke. He was literally shoveling hay to pay for his stay at this farm, but he was doing what he loved, and that was driving. But did you hear about this in the press conference? I
No, I
didn't know that
didn't.
about him.
Oh, that's interesting.
What did you think about Oscar and Lando this weekend?
Okay, the big question. So it was great. You predicted it last week that Lando's going to bounce back, and he did that emphatically. One of the best qualifying laps you'll see. The Red Bull Ring is a tiny track, and to find that huge amount of gap between everyone else is remarkable. It really is one of the best qualifying laps that I think we've seen all year. It was absolutely perfect. And that Q3 for Lando has been his Achilles heel. He's been dominant all the way through practice, all the way through the early parts of qualifying, and then Oscar gets him in Q3. But this time he just pulled out a magical lap. And from there, he was able to dominate the race. First 20 laps were a bit hairy for him. There was some very exciting on track action between the two drivers. What did you think of the battle between them? Do you think it was fair or?
I thought it was fair. My heart was definitely in my mouth. I was sweating, definitely sweating. And then when Oscar got the call that the last lunge was a little too much, he was too far back, you could have taken Lando out. I was like, okay, thank goodness someone's intervening here. I thought it was great fun and obviously great action for fans to see. I'm sure for Lando it was very stressful. Lando really, I feel like when he does well, one of the things he seems to do is play it down. You know, when I think he should celebrate those really big milestones and wins more often because when he doesn't get it, he's much harder on himself. So I hope that he cracks a smile a little more and just like lives and smells the rose when he has done an incredible job. And half a second on everyone else is nothing to sneeze about.
He is a terrible celebrator. He's the worst. He wins the race. I was expecting him to, at least do something. He just climbed out of the car, went and spoke to a few of the mechanics, casually walked over to his team, had a few jokes with them, went up to his dad, gave his dad a hug. He didn't celebrate at all. And you want to see your drivers show emotion, show passion. And this was such a pivotal race in the whole story of this championship. It's the race that he bounces back. It's the race that he closes the gap on Oscar. It's really setting up the championship very nicely. And there was no emotion. There's such a contradiction between how he celebrated winning his first race in Miami, crowd surfing with his team, gone to being one of the most boring celebrators we've ever had. I can't think of anyone who's more lackluster after winning a race than he is.
I
Yeah.
wonder if it's part of his process, though, to not have the highs and lows of good days and bad days and to like be more even keeled. So, from emotional and mental state standpoint, it's more like one note. What should everyone look out for this weekend in Silverstone?
If it's going to be hot, it will probably be McLaren. Maybe Red Bull will be back again. The Lando Oscar battle is going to be brilliant. I think that's going to be. Um, Oscar's going to want to desperately, desperately get the win as revenge for Australia. Also, sort of arrest the momentum back from Lando. Lando has once finished behind a teammate at Silverstone back in 2017 in GP3. They had three races in Silverstone, and on the second race, he finished behind his teammate. But every other race he's ever had at Silverstone in any category from there above, he's been the faster of him and whoever he's with. So yeah, Oscar's got a big mountain to climb. That Kyle Max comes back is going to be interesting. Lewis had a great race last year. Can he do it again? The fans in Silverstone give him a huge boost. Williams are another team that needs to come back. We had some great results in Austria for people like Liam Lawson, who's had a terrible year. And his result has hopefully kind of opened things up for him. He looked so happy in the press conference afterwards. Like it was a massive, massive release. Gabriel Bortoleto scoring his first points. I've been going on about how good a driver he is, and I was getting quite worried because we were almost halfway through the season and he hadn't scored. But he's been doing very well quietly in the background, and now we got to see him get some points. So Sauber look like they've found a new lease of life. So is it just track specific, or can they translate that into more points in Silverstone? So lots of stories coming along. We had Alex Dunn step into Lando's car this weekend and finished fourth. And I've never seen a rookie step into a Formula One car for the first time and put that impressive performance together.
McLaren just has a stacked team, all the
Yeah.
way around. But yes, there's a lot of really positive momentum with a couple teams, like you mentioned, and some very hungry teams to turn the next weekend around. I feel that all the British drivers and the British teams, they just get into another gear, no pun intended, in Silverstone. They just, it's their home race. There's so much passion around it. I don't think Lando is going down without a massive fight to lead this race. He has his own grandstand this weekend. And yeah, Lewis, I mean, he won last year, didn't he? He won.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
his first win, he said, in a few years, and he was super emotional about it. I remember in his interview, he he opened up and talked about how he had been doubting himself, and it's crazy to hear a seven-time world champion talk about, thinking that they may never win a race again. But yes, I remember how special that moment was.
Yeah, the eight of the 10 teams are based around Silverstones. Most of their factories are there in some form or another. A lot of them bring the factory personnel to the track. It's this wonderful carnival of sport. There's a possibility that it might hit the record for the highest attendance of any Formula One race ever if the weather holds. So that's something to look out for. Will it rain? It's England and it rains often. So that could throw the cat among the pigeons. The other exciting thing to look out for is who's going to be driving an Alpine, because apparently this is Colapinto's final race. He was supposedly given 5 races to prove himself, and one of the criteria was to score points, and he unfortunately hasn't managed to do that. Not really his fault, the car hasn't been great, but are we going to see a fresh face in Alpine? Or are they going to give him a bit more time, which they should, because, 5 races isn't enough.
Yeah, and 2 out of those 5 were mechanical issues. I recall that he couldn't complete those races. Yeah, I read a rumor. I don't know if this is true, that Flavio went and spoke with Toto if Valtteri was available as a potential replacement, but I don't know. I don't know.
I saw Flavio talking with just about everybody in the paddock this weekend. He was in the Mercedes garage, he was chatting to Alonso, he was everywhere. What is your
Yeah.
prediction for all the results for Silverstone?
Ooh, I think I'm trying to not let bias creep into this, but Lando, George, Oscar on the podium.
Interesting. I'm going to go for Lando, Oscar, Lewis.
Lando, Oscar, Lewis. I love Lewis, so I hope, because that would be his first podium too at Ferrari, right? Could you imagine? That would be amazing.
Yeah, first
Yeah.
first grown up podium, not a sprint
Yeah.
race podium.
Right.
Thank you everyone for joining us for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. There's a link to some photographs from the Austrian Grand Prix in the description below, and some links to Milkshake as well. If you haven't checked that out, please do so. And until Silverstone, goodbye.